Um, I've gone with Clermont Foot's Mohamed Bayo, who's a 22-year-old striker, very much staying with the theme of picking strikers in these scouting episodes that we had last time around, Lee. But he's 6'2" tall. He's quite a presence on the pitch. And the first thing that I've got in my notes is that he's a knees up sprinter. Because it seems as though whenever he goes through on goal, his knees are almost touching his chest, because he's just powering these legs to try and get onto the ball. He's got a huge cadence, huge gait, to get onto the ball. And sort of when he does latch onto it, unlike other players, typically more diminutive players, it's not as though he's cutting back onto a favoured foot and waiting for reinforcements. He's always sort of powering through. And I think it would be a mischaracterization to say that he is purely a player who is, someone who can play on the shoulder and go through on goal. That is true. He can play like that, but he also does have quite intelligent penalty box movement from what I've seen. He tends to arrive at the right time, doesn't break his stride, which I mean, I'm not comparing him to him, but it's the same sort of thing that Erling Haaland does, that we see for Dortmund in that near post run at the left hand side. When the ball is coming across from the left, he never seems to break stride, and that allows him to get a clean strike on the ball. It's almost like he just arrives right place, right time, and that's a hallmark of good strikers. And it's very similar in terms of Bayo's striking. He tends to get on the end of cutbacks really well, and of course there is the caveat that Ligue 2's defending isn't the best at most of the time, and there have been occasions this season, especially when he scored, where there've been balls played across, and there's nobody within 3 to 5 to 8 yards of him, and it's like, well, most top strikers are going to put those away. But in terms of being a striker, I think he's got around 30 goals in the past 2 seasons at Ligue 2 level. So and at Championnat National, where he was out on loan last season. So there's the scope to say that he's risen to the challenge in Ligue 2 this season with Clermont Foot. And I mean, top level, I think you may be pushing it in terms of his ceiling, his potential. But I do see some sort of similarities. It's actually quite funny, because I see similarities between him and Famara Diédhiou, who is of Bristol City, who was also at Clermont Foot before getting moved to England. And I think the Championship is probably a league that Bayo would probably do quite well in. He's physical enough, but he's also smart enough to make that step up. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see some interest from that sort of area, because he's a multifaceted striker, but has the physical tools to be able to mix it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that when you sent me across your message with your player picks, I responded saying that I'm convinced that Bayo scores about 20% of his goals by accident.
Yeah,
Because when you watch him play, there is an awful lot of times the ball comes across and he makes contact somehow, but you're not quite
yeah,
sure sometimes how he's made contact and the ball ends up in the goal. But I think I first became aware of Bayo when he was playing on loan at Dunkirk in the lower tiers. I was doing some lower tier scouting using data, and Bayo's numbers just stood right out. So, of course, I went and had a look. And at first, you're looking at him and you're going, I'm not convinced, because it looks ungainly. You're
mm,
right, with the knees right up, and he goes through on goal, and he's so single minded. But then after a period of time, when a player, even at that level and then at second tier level, when they start to show the level of output that he does in terms of, I mean, to be honest, his goal involvements are goals per 90. They're not really assists per 90. He's not a false nine. He's not a creator. He probably makes more opportunities for teammates because opposition defenses are so scared of him that they cluster closer together towards him and then create space elsewhere. It's similar to the concept of gravity in basketball, when a really effective attacking player creates room by teammates just for being positioned in the penalty area. Um, but when a player of this type starts to produce those kind of goal outputs, you have to pay attention, because one way or the other, he's scoring goals. And at the end of the day, if he's scoring a goal, who cares if it goes in off his shin, off his knee, or off a first time half volley that he's timed really well? I think you're absolutely right that people, and myself included originally, I looked at him and saw a powerful runner, someone who took advantage of space behind opposition defensive lines, and the defending at the third tier was even worse than the second tier, so quite often he was just wandering about in spaces between the centre backs, and nobody was making a movement to get tight to him, so he was scoring a lot of goals. But then you look at him a little bit more closely, and it's those double movements in the penalty area. It's arriving at speed in the penalty area, but then adjusting the angle of his attack really quickly so that defenders don't know he's about to burst past him on the left or the right. And it's those little pieces of information that make him stand out in terms of his goal output. I think you're right. I think at the top level, we're not sure. He is somebody who I think would score goals in Liga to a point, because that profile of striker tends to do well in Liga. It's players who have that powerful running style. He's probably good for 10, 12, maybe even 14 goals in Liga next season if they go up. And that would be great for a club like Clermont. But you have to wonder exactly where his level will come, where he'll level off, and where he'll come up against defences that will start to play him a little bit smarter, if you like, and not give him the space to run behind.
Yeah, very much so. Just as an aside, Clermont Foot are an interesting tale. They have never played in Liga, which, considering how they've been perennially a Ligue 2 side, is quite hard to believe, but it's just never happened for them. But yeah, this year they do appear to be on the cusp of sort of finally making it, and of course, partial credit must go to Bayo's goals. Whether they've come off his shin from a skewed half volley or that sort of thing.